Go.
Hello, everyone. This is part 2 of our series of human trafficking, elder guardianship, survivor stories. Today is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. And part 2 is how hard is it to get out of guardianship? And be sure to watch part 1, where we talk about how easy it is to get into guardianship. But for part 2, again, we have Jan Garwood, who is our interviewer, our interviewee, who is a former ward of Seminole County in Seminole County, Florida. And interviewing her, we have Beverly Newman leading this. And she is an elder advocate. And I'm also joining Beverly to interview Jan. And my name is Elena Steinbrook, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. And Beverly also is in Florida. And we would like to really just thank Jan again, Jan Garwood, for being here and taking her time to do these interviews with us, so we can just make awareness about guardianship and warn people about it and the dangers, and bring awareness and inspiration, because Jan is actually a very rare survivor of the guardianship system. So we're going to go on to talk about how hard it is to get out of guardianship. And before we dive right into this, I wanted to piggyback something off of the first one that I felt was really important that we didn't get to cover. For the Palms of Longwood, the director of the Palms of Longwood, I would just like to address that with you, Jan. What did she do? How did she treat you, and what did she do to facilitate the sale of your home? Or what I guess position she played, or how she was involved with the sale of your home that was sold for less than market value?
Yes. I don't know. I know it was through the Guardian, where the Guardian is in charge of the house. So the Guardian decided to sell it, and because they were both in cahoots about how they charged me and where the money came, and if I was even there at their facility. Because of her, I guess they figured they had me and I wasn't going anywhere. So the daughter of the manager, I guess you would call her, their last name was Wolfram, and the daughter bought my house. I didn't know about it until it was over. And when I did find out, I found out how much, being a real estate agent, I knew the value of my home. And you can still look it up and see my house should have sold for about 400 to 425,000, and they sold it for 259, and then even charged a real estate commission on top of it and legal fees, and all that was written off of me.
And isn't it true, Jan, that the person who bought your home for approximately $150,000, no, $175,000 less than what it was worth, was the daughter of the director of the nursing home facility where you were held in lockdown for years, in a room with bars on the windows, about 10 by 12 feet, with a very, very sick roommate. I mean, I could go on and on under severe restrictions. So there was a real deal here going on, where this director had access to information that enabled her, and connections that enabled her family to buy your home for way below market value.
Yes, this is true. The other thing I'm concerned about still, and I'm working on, is everything in the interior. The Guardians have access to your house, but
Yes.
not to your belongings. That's not part of what the law says anyway. And I could be wrong, but I hate to put a price on it, but I was an only child. So I inherited everything from like 3 generations of my family. And they're things that meant a lot to me, as you are with your organization. where you keep your collectibles. And I had probably, between the jewelry and the collectibles and the artwork, my furniture, about $300,000 worth of stuff. And I
Which
don't know
would have
where
been-
it is. I was told it was put into a warehouse, but I haven't heard another word, and the Guardian hasn't responded.
Wow.
Well, every case I've ever worked on in the past 12 years, the guardian has access to, the guardian of the property has access to every single solitary thing that you have. Right
Yeah,
or
but what-
wrong, but that's the way it works. And you do have the right, and you must exercise the right to find out where your personal possessions are. You know your real property, but what's inside of the real property, I certainly pray that you're going to be able to find where they are and to recover those items. In my father's case, we were never able to recover the items that they took. I want to ask you, how long did it take you to be liberated from guardianship? How many years were you trying to get out of this complete change, drastic, draconian change to your life? So you went from a
From my house, and
home of a $425,000 home to a 10 by 12 cell.
yes, I tried from the first time they put me into the drug rehab, talking to people and trying to get help. From the minute I was, brought in, and depending upon whether they were working with the Guardian or not, whether I got any access and any response. I didn't really start to get any progress until the judge that I was working with and kept begging for help and going in front of him and asking to go in front of him was replaced by another judge.
So
And
you,
I believe you were able to do it because I had that. And I had a doctor that I saw while I was in the drug rehab. And then the doctor of the facility tried to get me out twice by competency. The first time he failed. And the second time, when we had a new judge, he did a big competency test on me. Took him about 3 hours. And I think I got a 97%. So almost 100%.
that's pretty competent, isn't it? That's
Yes.
the opposite of incapacitated or incompetent.
And being put in a
Opposite.
medical ward.
Yeah, so let's just review for the audience. You went from being a real estate agent with a real estate agent license, a hairdresser with a hairdressing license. Actually, we didn't talk about this, but you were a dog breeder and maintaining a $425,000 home to having everything taken away from you pretty much overnight and saying you were incompetent, but you were,
That was
what
it.
was
It
that?
was a $9,000 car, over $9,000.
Wow, unbelievable.
And the way it happened, again, to go back to part one, was two unidentified, unannounced women show up at your home demanding the keys to the $9,000 car that you had just bought the day before and taking you to a place unknown, which turned out to be a drug rehab center.
Yes.
So you, in an instant, your whole life changed. And it sounds to me like you spent about 2.5 years trying
Yes,
to get out of guardianship, to be liberated from guardianship. What was the date of the time when those women, who were Rebecca Fearley and Denise Willis, professional guardians in the state of Florida? What was the date when they showed up? And what was the date of your liberation?
I really don't know the exact date. I'm sure I could find it of when they showed up at my house. I could check with the Nissan company and find out when I bought the car. And I believe it was August 24th that my son was able to bring me the paperwork releasing me.
August 24th of 2020 is
Yes.
your, what I call Liberation Day, because this is a liberation, and the date when you went in was in what year?
I wish I could know. I'm not 100% sure. I never had any paperwork or anything to
You
look
never
back.
had the paperwork. Everything's a blur because it happened so lightning fast, correct?
Yes. And of course, I had nothing to work with, no one to talk to, no
No
phone, no,
support.
nothing for quite a while. It was at least a year, year and a half.
How
Before-
many attorneys did you have while you were in guardianship?
Well, I called a lot of people, but I believe I had one, and then they backed out. And then until I got to the point where it was getting close to my release, they hired another attorney here locally who hired another person in Tampa or Naples. I'm not sure where my attorney is right now.
Naples.
But Naples, that's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure. And he's been very busy, but supposedly he's working on finding my things and the damages that happened to me and going after the Palms for allowing the new owners.
So
And
who helped you to be liberated? You know, you have,
well, your group, you, Hillary Hogue,
so
my son.
is it fair to say that without external advocates,
I'd still be there.
you'd still be locked up? And this was a lockdown facility. Even before COVID-19, it was a lockdown facility. Then after COVID-19, the pandemic, you were trapped in that facility. And were there people in that facility who were infected and hospitalized and passed
Dying.
away?
Yeah, I think that was part of what really helped me, where they couldn't fight me too much because there were people dying on my floor. And there were, if I'm not mistaken, there were 6 that I had the names that I reported, which really set it off for the judge. So he could see that here I am healthy. You leave me here, I'm going to die. There's no way I can't get it eventually. I have a
Absolutely.
picture of
And
one of the nurses that are touching without gloves, was touching my roommate. And if she just touched somebody else who died, there it is. We've just
Oh,
passed.
that's disgusting. Did she wash her hand? Did they wash their hands every time they came in your room?
Well, I couldn't tell what they did outside of my room, but if she wasn't wearing gloves when she came in,
Did she wash her hands though when she came in?
no, not that I'm aware
That's
of.
again, yeah, I mean,
It should be. And again, I did take a picture of it with my phone.
good for you.
Wow.
And
That is-
you, while you were in the Palms of Longwood, you were on your phone secretly because you weren't allowed to have it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's literally worse than a convicted criminal. You're not allowed even to have phone calls with the people you choose.
yeah, we just talked about a nurse who wasn't, or we didn't know, well, we shouldn't say bad nurse, but a nurse that maybe wasn't following hygiene protocol. But let's talk about the nurses that were supporting you, who helped get you a phone and just, they were supporting you. I think it's important that we talk about them too, because they were supporting you and they couldn't even do anything to eliminate the guardianship. You would think they could see that you weren't incapacitated and they still support you to this day.
Yes.
You know,
I was very lucky that there were a couple that really cared about me, and they're still working for the Palms right now.
Yeah,
They're
so we want to be careful about that. But there are nurses who care, and their hands are tied even to what they can do. You would think, how is this possible? How is this possible? People just do not realize that this is possible. And they saw that you were incapacitated, and they still support you.
Thank
Yes.
God for that.
Yes,
Um,
I was very lucky.
So once you got a new judge, and I would like to think that the advocacy that our group was constantly doing from the governor on down and the media, etc., was at least partially responsible for getting you a judge who was willing to re-examine your case and to listen to your position. Once you got that new judge, how long approximately was it until you were actually liberated or released from that nursing home and from guardianship? Was it
The judge was Judge Galuso. I've remembered his name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And what he did was order my competency test through the doctor.
which you had been asking for years?
Yes. And I just had to prove that I was competent so that he was comfortable with ordering my release and my release from my guardian.
And wasn't it a matter of weeks from the time
Maybe
we
a
got a
month.
new judge and you were actually released from your incarceration?
Yes, I think it was maybe a month or 6 weeks.
Yeah,
That's
I would
what
like to just
recall.
I always like to personally chime in here as somebody who, on the sides, I wasn't even in the locked unit, but I was so upset and frustrated. It is so hard, especially even with a team of people fighting to get you out. It is so hard. The attorneys were objecting and stalling and having the hearings rescheduled. I mean, how did that feel for you, Jan, when you were there? Or is it just you were used to it?
I was so frustrated, but I think what it is I never gave up. If I had given up, it would have been different, but I just kept fighting it. I was thinking about it before the guardian finally, after I complained that it had been almost 3 years since I'd had my eyes examined, sent me to an eye doctor, and she met me there. It was one of the few times I ever saw her in person. And it was frustrating because I saw her talking to a couple other patients where they were being paid. So this eye doctor is crooked. He's working for the guardian, but I had no idea that she was there. When they did my initial exam, I was talking to the nurse, don't ever let your family go into guardianship, keep away. And I started back then opening my mouth and trying to help. And she said, you know, your sister's out there in the waiting room. And it turned out to be my guardian. They had my insurance and they didn't charge me through my insurance. They decided to take cash instead. So I didn't even get the glasses there because I didn't want to let them have any more of my money.
Let's go to that important message that you were giving to people. It sounds like in the waiting room.
It was where they were examining me. I was in another room with the nurse.
And you were telling them, don't ever let your family go into guardianship.
Absolutely. I tell everybody I meet strangers in the street, my mouth is always open and going as long as she can't get me again.
Thank God. We do
That's
not
good.
ever want you to go back in. Obviously, we don't want anybody to go into a guardianship, a professional guardianship, where it takes minutes to hours to get in and many years and hundreds of communications to get out if you actually get out. And again, Elena and I and all of the advocates that worked so
Hillary,
hard to
too.
get you free, to get you liberated, want to thank you. And proclaim that you really are a miracle. You are someone who has gone from incarceration to liberation. You're on the other side of guardianship, for which we are really thankful and appreciate your time and your openness, your willingness to share the pain and suffering that you have experienced in the guardianship system, which is national. Your case
Yes,
is Seminole County, Florida, but we have cases in every single state of the United States.
It can happen anywhere. And the courts, yeah, you really have to be careful. It is a money drain. It is a waste. I would tell anybody, do not do it. Avoid it at all costs.
Avoid it at all costs. Good,
that's my goal.
good message. And thank you very much, Jan.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. We appreciate you being here with us.
I have to be. That's my new job.
Your new job, I like it.
We love it. Yes.
Mhm.